Hey, what's going on, everybody? A little later than usual, apologies. But we'll go ahead and look at what happened here today for Tuesday. Or if we look at the higher time frame, kind of like we spoke about here on Monday, we have already hit that daily objective. That says daily swing point, weekly swing point. We kind of expected this to be the high. So after coming off of this high, we've just retraced back into now this 1 hour here, and then Friday's high as well. So slight retracement, kind of expected a pullback, wasn't too surprised to see that. As we were heading lower, notice that we kind of create a large range heading into New York, which is why we expected the New York session and then really the rest of that day to just consolidate. Right, as you can see, we're inside this hourly fair value gap here. We had this hourly fair value gap as well. 1 hour volume imbalance levels as we get down to lower time frames. So there's a lot of higher time frame PD arrays that would draw price into this area. Here on the 15, you'll see what we mean when we speak about that power of 3 today. So really after the midnight open, we get above the midnight, trade lower, retouch that midnight once, and then from there, break lower, holding this 15-minute fair value gap. Right, London holds that premium and then continues to really deliver us lower. So as we're approaching and heading into the 9:30 opening, we've really already delivered into the 1 hour volume imbalance here. We had one more lower, so we were really just looking to see if price would want to deliver into that. We get into that 1 hour. We have a 1 minute here as well. Ultimately, trading higher, creating kind of a 1 hour fair value gap here. That price referenced a few times throughout the day. So we come into it once, a few more times before ultimately kind of using it as support, right, breaking it and trending higher. Take a look here at the 1 minute now, really the important stuff we were looking at. So once again, this is the 1 hour volume imbalance. It's a pair. Right, this level here is now that fair value gap. So during London had really already created power of 3. We were holding that 15-minute as we mentioned, right, multiple times. We then break lower. And as we're heading into the 9:30 opening here in New York, price is already consolidating. So we spoke about how we created these equal lows and we wanted to see price attack those lows. Obviously, we can kind of expect high resistance conditions, right? You can see that playing out here, how many times we go back and forth, back and forth. Ultimately, we do get underneath that sell side, leaving behind a bearish fair value gap that we then use quickly as institutional order flow entry to deliver us all the way into now our 1 minute. So we're breaking underneath this 1 hour here and getting into the 1 minute fair value gap. As we break under the 1 hour, you'll notice that we created a 1 minute bearish fair value gap. So just like yesterday, right, if this was going to kind of remain bearish and deliver bearish, this fair value gap should have held. So we hold it initially. Once we get above it, we understand more than likely we want to at least return higher in the short term, right? So now we have relative equal highs here. We have buy side here in the form of equal highs, and we still have the hourly fair value gap. So ultimately, we do end up using that as resistance or support, excuse me. You'll notice as we went up and through that wick, we did leave one fair value gap here. So we hold here for most of the time, right? And then heading into lunch, we actually run a short-term low one more time, creating SMT divergence with NQ, returning into the 1 minute fair value gap, holding with the candle bodies perfectly. And then as we break back above, right, this here is the 1 minute fair value gap. As we're breaking back above that, back above the inversion, we create this volume imbalance. So creating a new discount as we're leaving one. We can expect something like this to hold us and then propel us into buy side first here. So we got into this buy side, and then we were able to get all the way up into just other buy side targets, right? So this high here, this was the high that we exited on, this buy side pool. Ultimately, we got all the way up into the equal highs, the fair value gap, and reached up into the high of that fair value gap. Once we did that, we created a new short-term high. We then retrace to clear out all of this sell side left behind, so equal lows, short-term lows, short-term lows. And now this also, right, is a higher time frame fair value gap here. So if we go to the 15 to show you quick, right, we have that 15 here. So as we work back to that 1 minute, here's that 15. We create equal lows just above consequent encroachment of that level. So now we have liquidity to interact with as we're returning into that inefficiency, still hitting the higher time frame one as well, higher time frame hourly. So at this point, we're still just consolidating. Right, we hit that discount, we then bounce, breaking structure at this high. This is the YouTube model that we shared now as well for the afternoon. Short-term low being cleared, returning into a discount, breaking structure while leaving behind a fair value gap. So our entry came right on this fair value gap, stop under the swing point. And at this point, we just had to sit through it. Right, so another high resistance liquidity run. We were aiming for this buy side. Try to get up into it once, two, three times, ultimately retracing. Right, giving a deeper retracement, kind of scaring that stop loss, but never taking it out. Before ultimately, we were able to run up and through that buy side high. From there, that ends up being high of the afternoon. We then start retracing for power hour, just back into the range, right? Notice how we have sell side now resting here. So relative equal lows with an actual pair of equal lows. And we do give us one setup here that forms really at the end of the day, right? So following 350, we run up into this fair value gap, right? It's also paired with now this right here, which is our 830 open. So we've hit the 830 open. We're holding, right? Notice how we're holding that level while at the same time engineering short-term high, breaking structure lower. So this is a YouTube model. We also had SMT with NQ. So a lot of things pointing towards lower prices. And now we hold that fair value gap and deliver us into that sell side target here. So we end the day with delivering into that sell side, and then now here, right, we get a huge candle wick. So we had news. This just wicks into the 1 hour, back down into the 1 hour. So kind of running buy side and sell side quickly, right? Running that short-term high, returning first into this fair value gap, and then reversing to just run out the low here, right? And we actually ran out the low that was created from the morning. So we ended up wicking out the liquidity, but it was simply that, just a wick. And then we would trace back into the range as we saw, right? And now we're kind of consolidating there. So going forward, tomorrow will be our last day this week. We'll kind of look for, let's clear some of this up. Honestly, not much in here to go off of. Shortened trading week. We're going to have a bank holiday coming up, right? Thanksgiving. So we don't expect too much more movement. Because we did clear this low with this wick, I would just be interested in seeing if we don't want to attack opposing buy side actually. So my intention would go here to this buy side. I'll look for that. If we're going to keep running, right? Maybe the high here we had formed. Let's see, on a 15 cents, we have equal highs here. So I like this level as well. Yeah, going forward, right, we would look for those higher prices. Wouldn't want to see anything lower than this 1 hour fair value gap if we're going to go higher. So we'll leave it at that for tonight. We will be back tomorrow morning, same time, 9:55 Eastern. Just before that high impact news at 10 o'clock. And we'll see what we can get. Till then, have a good night, everybody. Talk in the morning.